All right. Hi. I am the editing mastermind, and what I've decided to do is combine the last 3 episodes into one giant episode because it deserves a lot of groundwork. You probably found that I've provided about 3 endings now to all of that stuff, which is fantastic. Bit strange, but maybe it all requires about 3 endings, and I wanted it's like alternate endings to like an interesting movie. Not to say that my podcasts are as any as good as an interesting movie, but you know about the alternative ending sort of things. Sometimes you've got a positive theme, you've got a bad theme. Usually mine are just not very well delivered endings. So let's bring us back down to another subject. Donald Trump. Oh my gosh. This was the thing that was slightly popping into my head this morning. Interesting man. This guy, I believe, is from Scottish heritage. I remember seeing loads of news articles of him going over to Scotland, trying to build some hotels and some golf courses. God only knows, does he know, that that country is freezing cold, and who would want to bloody run up and down a bloody field in the freezing cold playing golf there? You want to be in the Bahamas playing golf. I don't know whether you got golf courses in the Bahamas. Maybe. Let's just go Florida, shall we say. You're going to be in Florida with nice sunny weather and beautiful skies, and you're never too far away from going to a theme park. You want all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, there is an interesting thing which happens to a man, especially a man of power, over time, and it's a very interesting phenomenon, and it can be dangerous and it can be positive at the same time. And maybe it's even happened to me as well. And that is, as time progresses, a man becomes fairly sure of his ways, and this is definitely not just for men. It does occur quite a lot that I notice in men. It does happen to women as well. But very set in his ways, understanding the realms of his reality very well, and especially when he has become very powerful by the means of his business acumen and his prowess, because if you have the ability to generate wealth and money, and I cannot see a thing because I'm blinded by the sun. So if you have the ability, that was a bit scary, to generate immense amounts of wealth, obviously women will flock to you. You will have friends which will come out of the woodwork and surround you and want to say that you are the greatest person in the world, and you will have the one thing that you'll probably, everybody needs a little guiding light in their lives, and just so that they don't walk off the path, because everyone knows that everyone's capable of going into a bit of a strange place. But one thing that power and the wealth brings to you is it starts to remove the possibility of that close friend. Now, that close friend, before you become into a wealthy position, is probably the most valuable resource that Donald Trump probably could ever have, and maybe he has got one. Who knows? I'm not entirely sure, but it's questionable that it is. Now, you could say that you could have a good wife that could potentially be that close to Donald Trump. I'm not sure whether he's on his first wife or his second wife or anything like that, but I'm more inclined to think that he's probably got another wife on the way, and the wife has come to him while he was a wealthy person. So, again, if it wasn't a wife that stuck with him from the start, and maybe was just attracted to him, attracted to his confidence, attracted to a few of his own original virtues rather than the money and the power, then that would have been a very interesting resource to have for a woman to be standing by his side. I know that he's got some sons, or maybe a son, but if you do have a son, but then you're brought into a wealthy family, that's I always hear this story a lot of times. That it's one of the hardest challenges, is to be in the shadow of your father, your father's success, because I think there's nothing better than the lesson of hardship and cold reality, and all you are working with is words that people have passed to you in before about working hard and striving to avoid problems. So it's a fairly hard position to be in, and I think as much as I don't necessarily think it's the case of the son, but then from the father's perspective, if you have tons of wealth. Oh, shit. Sorry. If you have tons of wealth, then your son will oppose questions of how you should do business or anything like that, and you'll inevitably say, well, you haven't got the history, you haven't got the experience to what I know, and then you always can smash your son's opinion of a business proposition. Now, maybe if you are a wise person, and then you may foresee that my son is a source of youth, and he would have a better perspective on life to me from a youth's perspective, because he has been brought up in the age of technology, and he was in the age of making phone calls to get business agreements. He was his son's sending Facebook advertisements now, and all this kind of new novel technologies to advertise his hotel and real estate empire. So there is a fairly... Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. There is a fairly interesting dynamic of where you have a rich and powerful man, and it all goes to the head. And no matter how many people try and reason, the closest ones that you're going to probably have to getting to question yourself will be your family, and yet you will be, as you're trying to dominate your well, not dominate your family, I don't think that's necessarily a correct word of using, but just assert yourself as the leader of the house, and this is the way that we should be doing things, and all those kind of things. You cannot necessarily just have your son ruling the roost and saying this is how my business should run, stuff like that, especially when you know that you've got the guidance of experience. So even so, Donald Trump may think that he has got the wisdom and the best interests of the immediate family that he is surrounded by. Yet he cannot come back. And who knows, maybe the sons and the wife all agree with all of the political stances that Donald Trump is coming out with. They all come from a fairly conservative background, so have got a very sort of I'm not saying it's not a warped sense of society, but it is a corporate sort of environment that they continuously surround themselves in. So maybe Donald Trump understands a little bit more about the world of poverty more than his family counterparts. So then he is the only one who has experienced a unique perspective and has the full wisdom of all his surroundings. But he has been jaded by, again, lots of people that are very subservient to him all of his life. So if I'm working for you, I will try to provide you with the best. I'll try and deliver you the best goods as I possibly can, to give you quality and to give you a sense of value in return for the exchange of your goods. I want a good customer reference, and I'm going to potentially put up with a few character traits just so that I get my paycheck at the end of the day. It's not to say that I do have the choice after I get paid just to not agree to do work with you any further, but there are those certain moral positions that people get placed in when being in a business environment, and I don't personally tend to struggle too much with people, but there are, well, actually, I haven't been honest. There have been people in the past that have been a bit of a struggle in a working environment. But as long as it doesn't necessarily jeopardize the work itself, then you can continue by it being in a status of not agreeing with each other and stuff like that. But when it turns to your boss, you really, if you're looking for things like bonuses, and it's remember how things are all, a lot of things are character driven, and people are always looking at people's character all the time, and not only the value of the work ethic that you provide to an organization, but if you're a funny person, if you create a good atmosphere in your workplace environment. That is all a number of valuable attributes that occur within working in a place of work, and the manager is always perceiving these things and making choices according to the environment. I guess a good manager is always going to look at the holistic thing. A manager who's not focused on that and just looking at just performance then may just have the most barren of atmospheres where people are just putting their heads down and nobody decides to talk to each other, and then the pain sort of reveals itself in different ways, where people have had better workplace environments and then they choose to go to other companies. He gets a faster turnover of heads, and then the performance of the company starts to diminish because he has to retrain, and there's less people of experience that are surrounding him. So the manager that doesn't take that objective or even subjective view of his workplace environment then comes unstuck. So there are people that are professionals in personality that are surrounded Donald Trump, and who will deliver him things on time and be always very agreeable with him. If they disagree with him, then they will be they'll try and do it in such a diplomatic way as to not upset him. And the challenge that he also has is in the terms of the business world, that he lives in obviously a very hyper competitive environment, from his business organization to his other competitors. So there will be a fairly warped sense of reality about them and us when it comes to competition, and he will be quite accustomed to other businesses having a little dig at his business organization and having a dig at his personal character. But yet he's sailing aboard a ship where everyone's like, yeah, we're the champions, we're the winning team, and these guys are just a bunch of losers. They're just they're rubbish. So he's been trained in a corporate world where he is facing competition on a strange sort of scale, which comes back to him. But I guess it does tie in quite usefully in a political domain. But it's interesting how you take upon these sort of subjects for him and then reapply it into his political life. Right. So unfortunately, this is my research is a little bit limited, so I am going to have to make a few little assumptions here with his stance. But just using this man, I'm using a name here, but it might not. I might be just extending the truths here a little bit. But if this man is a fairly conservative man, we're going to assume that he's right wing on his policies, and he wants to assume the presidency, and he is trying to target, and maybe he is trying to target, but I think he's appealing to his own thoughts. And I think out of a lot of presidents, I think probably the area of problem. Oh, the problem of driving a manual car. So the area of problem that with all the other candidates is that he probably is lacking the most amount of empathy compared to a lot of other candidates. Now, a lot of other candidates, especially left-wing candidates, they're going to have to just think about, the struggles of life, and this is incredibly hard for the poverty, and I have got we have to give a direct solution to this problem straight away. There are people starving. There are homeless people. The left always appeals to the greatest amount of emotions and seems to be the most and applies the most amount of empathy, and possibly could well be that the left wing feel like the most apply the most empathy. Now, on the other side of the scale, you have the conservative ideals, and the conservative ideals do generally provide for a better economy. So the conservative ideals would be to create a better free market system where there is less rules and regulation. However, the regulation happens on its own territory, not by the rule of the state. Taxations are lowered to such a degree that you can not all of the value that you are creating is being redistributed back to poor people, which may not necessarily know how to use the resource in the best manner to get them out of their poverty trap. And then you have the protectionism element of conservatism, which is a little bit of a danger in terms of thinking. So I believe that the economic sort of ideals of full liberty in a free market system where there's voluntary trade. When I say I believe, I'm pretty much as close to 100% on these theories and ideals, and I think they're pretty much watertight. But when it comes to the conservatism side of things, we have protectionism. Now, we want to protect things, and it's the classic ideals of the man. I've heard this point put forward before and stuff like that. Is that the left side is like the mother who wants to who's nurturing and provides food and shelter and all those kind of things, and you got the man who's in the watchtower looking out for the barbarians to come with their rabble, and we're going to protect ourselves and call to arms and all those things. So the conservative ideals is, and this happens, I think, a lot to men when they get older, is to protect, and it is part of our psyche to protect things. Now, to protect values like and good values like liberty is a good thing. However, and our freedom is always very difficult to argue against. Sorry for that. However, when it comes to protecting the nation's markets, so we're protecting our motor industry, or we're protecting our farming industry, and what we are going to do is we're going to impose import tariffs by using the rule of force to prevent other countries from providing us those goods, and we're going to create and so those markets can flourish inside our system, and we can improve the natural resources of our country. If there is any problems with our country, then we know that we've got that resource to our hands, and we're always going to be good in that sense. So it's good in that sense of protectionism. Now, that's never a good thing, because it creates a highly inefficient. The more you tariff and protect an industry, the more you are not exposing it to competition, and you're making a bloody lazy arsed what am I talking? Very lazy-arsed company who is just going, whoa, this is great, this is fantastic. The government's now imposing rules and regulations, which makes it harder for other companies to import their goods into this country, or we can just sit back and sweep up the fat of the land. And we can just take that little bit of time. And to be honest, everyone loves to takes a little bit of time and relax. And if you got that sort of golden chestnut of the government passing through these regulations, then it is fantastic. However, it eventually comes out in the woodwork that it hurts the citizens. And we find that the general value that has been generated for the people by the competition and the markets has been diminished quite rapidly. And all of a sudden, you're driving around in pretty shit cars that can't go around corners. And then you realise, why on earth are these bloody German cars a lot better than these big fat cars that I've got over here? And why they're so much more less fuel efficient, so we get ourselves to a state where we haven't produced anything of great value because of the imposition of rules and regulations and taxes imposed by a government. Now, who knows whether that industry would have still survived? Maybe there was a competitive edge on another country for low labour. And who knows what the next industry, if you did have a low taxation market in place, what everybody else would jump into. Maybe the motor industry was just one of those things that needed to be produced in newly industrialized countries. Maybe the market, a free market, required more people of technical expertise to revolutionize different areas of our life, like maybe the monetary system or the Internet of Things. Who knows? All of these different industries which would possibly have flourished in the gulf, which was caused by all the engineers being put into an organisation which had an easy ride. Maybe those engineers were required to be pushed harder, knowing that if they didn't push themselves harder and try to create as much excellence as possible, that they would there wouldn't be enough ideas generating and all those things. So it's one of those problematic areas. I do recommend The Wealth of Nations as a book by Adam Smith, if I'm correct. And this will give you the great lowdown. There's a lot of good British philosophers who were economic. There's a lot of things with philosophy and economics isn't a totally understood thing. It's almost like a political opinion sometimes, but there is a lot of good economists in the past, especially the British ones, the Locks, Adam Smiths, who have worked out that applying liberty into markets is the greatest good for our future prosperity. So remember that about protectionism. Now, also, you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, we have got, and there is there's a little bit of thought here, but I think the one thing that this is a policy that I heard, and this is probably the one that he pushed out the furthest, is that he stated that he didn't want Mexicans jumping over the border into the American nation and... Sorry, I'm just checking. I thought this podcast was going good, so I just needed to make sure that it was going, or I've been just talking to bloody myself in thin air, which would have been nice. So he said, like, he stood up there and he was like very bolshy. Bolshy was a word, actually. I think it was sort of like put into the vocabulary just before the Bolshevikism. was occurring in the Second World War, and it got the British people a bit more riled against Bolshevikism and the East. Interesting little bit of information that I heard from a YouTube video the other day, but you can study that and just check it out for yourself. But Mr. Trump got very bolshy in himself, but he wasn't very he wasn't being a communist. He was being a bit more rightist, a little bit fascist. But he stood up there and he says, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get a big Donald Trump wall that's going to separate us from Mexico. So there's no way they're going to be able to climb over that wall. And I am Donald Trump, and I build the best walls in the world. You watch, or you have a look at all my hotels, and you'll find out. Which kind of made me laugh. But also, I think from another person's perspective, it can be quite scary at the same time. The final thing, which I was just like, what the bloody hell? I haven't really worked out how he's going to do this. It says, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the Mexicans pay for it. I was like, what? Interesting. Seeing how much you've upset them in the first place, I would love to know how you're doing this, unless you've got some kind of blackmail system in place. I can't really perceive how you're going to do this. But what does that do, saying those kind of statements? Now, that does appeal to the right wing of society, and the ones which potentially might have that racist tendency. People that are just going, we are, what's the word for it? You might just have out-and-out racists, which are deciding this is a fantastic idea. We'd love to stop this this in our society. Okay, that's that element. There is certain arguments which get put in place. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the full political stance of Mexico. However, you do have a certain society which is very Western liberty, free market principle society. And then if you perceive the South American nations, I'm not exactly sure where Mexico stances is in their political beliefs in general, but I'm presuming that it's going to be the same as most of the other South American states, which would be more in the leftist paradigm and a little bit more maybe leaning towards communism. I could be wrong. One thing just to note very briefly is some lessons that could be learned from the Mexicans is they seem to be one of the happiest nations on earth. So, from a Donald Trump's perspective, they could be making America happier by going across the border and sharing the happiness and their wisdoms and ideals of how to create a peaceful nation. So, just that's the little thing. But also from a perspective, and it's kind of interesting in this point, is that where you have left-wing political parties, they love to increase their voting pool. And one of the ways that they will do that is to increase immigration, because you ain't going to get benefits, or many benefits, from a right-wing party or a very conservative party. You're going to be told from a conservative party that you are going to have to shed your own blood, sweat and tears to put any money in your pocket, which is totally true. And that is where you're only going to extract any wealth from the system in place. And you can, but the good thing about this system in place is it is free to enter, and it's free to there's low taxation, and we've cut down all the borders of bureaucracy, and the only thing that is preventing you to aspire is your own sort of own imagination and your own bravery. If you're brave enough, you can do it. You can smash it. You can become a millionaire in America and live the American dream. Now, the American dream, a lot of people laugh at. It's like, oh my god, it doesn't exist anymore. It's just, it's a fallacy. But I believe it does exist. But you do need to have ultimate liberty put forward into the nation. Now, if you do have on the other side a lot of Mexicans which have that very left-wing ideals, then you're diluting the values of a nation. And not to say that obviously a nation is a construct of the mind; it's a theory in itself. But what happens with the voting power and the blocks of people is that you change the nation in its rules and regulations, and you have the rules of force to oppose things and make the country as a whole a lot less wealthier. So now, that may be one fairish point, which is that you have lots of left-wing things which appeal to the left-wing government, which can then impose more left-wing ideals like more benefit systems, more more direct wealth extraction from people, and predominantly the middle class, where markets can flourish from, and then the destruction of the creation of value and the betterment of society, and then this continuous whirlwind into a communist ideal, and then you've got this sort of this dragon eating its own tail sort of position, where eventually the more extreme political parties can come forward and say, do you know what the problem is? It's like we're not getting enough wealth from, and the super rich is always the ones to go for at that point, as well as the middle class, and then it just goes into a whirlwind, and all of a sudden America, this free market liberty state, where if you want to work hard, you can make something of yourself, is not about that, and it's about a way of scamming and getting benefits in return for benefits, and losing value of lives. And you have this little Greek situation where there is a giant youth which has been stunted in its failure to flight. A lot of incredibly nuisance problems can be created by the whirlwind of leftist ideals. Oh, getting dry. So, Donald Trump, getting back to the man. He does. So when he puts out these ideas, he does create. Well, at least he does. He's creating ideas, and he's putting forward. He's making people think in a certain mythology. And what you do is you have the social justice warriors who think he is too extreme, and they see the Hitler inside him. So yeah, there is all of those interesting factors which take hold in this kind of person coming to a prominence and putting forward political views which are not very regularly put forward by your standard politician. your standard politician is going to be looking at problems and saying that these are problems and we need to fix them, and this is the way it was doing it. And I guess what's Donald Trump doing in difference to this? So I'm going back to the point of empathy again. So whereas the politician is looking at this direct empathy sort of perspective of saying this person is suffering, we need to fix the suffering that is happening on this person. The old sort of protector in his mind is going, I foresee the future here. I can tell you what is going to happen in our future. And in this future, I do not see that we are doing the correct thing. And I need to enforce a hell of a degree of a knockback to get this country back on track. And that again, that does appeal to the conservative man. That man who can foresee the problems of the future. Now it's interesting how you got this instant person who's like, oh my god, the people are suffering, we need to feed the people that are starving and all those kind of things. And then you have, I've seen this all before, I am experienced, I can tell you, I am the fortune teller of our problems, and this ain't going to work out, we need to do these things, and I know how to protect and save the day. And there ain't really, there's just this cold exterior to the presence of the man, and people get very instantly annoyed by the cold exterior of that person. People love the empathy man, the man who's like, people are starving, people have, need something to get their foothold on the ladder. They need some kind of handout to improve their lives. Everyone sees that person, sees that's a nice guy, that is a really kind, genuine person who is really going to help things. And then you've got this other person who's saying, I can see the future, and he just sounds like a control freak and a person who is who's not perceiving things in reality terms. And people will instantly sort of jump at this sort of ideal and go, my god, Donald Trump has gone absolutely mad. He's gone mad beyond all sense. The comedians will jump out and start taking shots at Donald Trump because he's a great target. He's one of the things within his own appearance is that he I always hear that he's got like a wig or something like that. I don't know if it is his natural hair or something like that. Or maybe he's getting a little bit light on top, but with that appearance, if you think of it in the terms of he's just trying to reclaim a little bit of his youth by holding the light amount of hair follicles on your head. That's the old thing with men, with the comb overs and that kind of stuff. And there's something in like men's society where it just says, look, come on, your time's gone, just get it all off and be a baldy. Which is look, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything that extremely nasty about it, unless it's really I don't know, the hurt of that stuff, unless that person's really just hurting from it. But I think Donald Trump is protected in his own power and everything else, that I don't think it really could affect him too much. But it does, that physical appearance of a man who probably should have said, right, by now we're going to take this all off now, and we're just going to have to accept that that nice little bit of blonde or ginger hair is over now, and we're going to just become a baldy. Hasn't happened yet, and it does sort of reflect upon Donald to say that not many people question him, and especially his appearance. I think one of the I think if you think about where you're surrounded by a lot of people, it always sort of is interesting in that realms where you eat some food and you got a little bit of something in the corner of your mouth, and somebody goes, "Oh," they try and be very genuine and go, "Oh, you got a little bit of food on the side of your mouth there," and stuff like that, or your flies are hanging low. In fact, I remember actually the other day when I went into the mail delivery store, the guy said, "Your mail, the flies are hanging low." It was so early in the morning, I forgot to even zip them up. But when you become so powerful, the thought of you trying to put the other person in a very lowly position is kind of scary to you. You're not going to say, "Hey, Donald, you're hanging low there, mate," because you think to yourself, you're assuming a highly powerful position in the worlds of what you are in. I like to surround myself with people that just don't mind like having a joke, and maybe taking a joke at my expense. There are certain points where you can take a joke at my expense, and then it's just like, okay, this is getting a little bit about your ego taking down mine, and not about sort of a good little perspective on the way I'm seeing myself, and it's not really helping me out too much. It's not actually a bonus, but it's more so of a negative factor that's occurring here. But yeah, so the floppy hair aspect, which where you're losing a lot of hair follicles and you're going around, it does send that message that nobody's been really sort of going to say to him, "Look, we're gonna start a political campaign. Just chop it off," and there's less ammunition there for people to take a little swipe at you there. That'll be a fairly good argument to put forward, but also Donald Trump might have said, maybe somebody did say that at some point in his life, but maybe Donald says, "No, I'm not bald. You're not seeing that," and stuff like that. It's not really happening. But if there is enough media to go out there, then there's a bit of an issue there. And maybe this little spite attack has been going on for a long time, and then maybe he's going, "Well, I'm not going to prove everybody right by chopping off my hair now." But I think sometimes if you chop off your hair, everyone's going to be going, "You was bald all along anyway." But after a while, that pretty much vanishes. It's not really like it goes anymore. But you get occasionally like, "Oh, do you remember when you was like this beforehand?" But it doesn't really happen anymore. But I think maybe that physical appearance of that person does portray that as well, and that doesn't sit in with that gives people a lot of ammunition to take somebody down with appearance. Now, it's not saying that appearance should be the way that politics can be when somebody puts forward a view. You shouldn't be taking any kind of appearance into account, but listening to the actual opinions itself and the points that are being put forward. Now, if that's not the case, then obviously a lot of people are not surrounding themselves in what they're not listening to what he's saying, but just looking at the ridiculousness of the appearance and his and the aura that he provides. And I think a lot of if you think of a lot of voters and stuff and people, a lot of people just go, "I like that man. He's got the charisma. He looks like a person who would be a good next door neighbour." And if I can't work out, I'm not really that interested in politics, but if I can tell, if this person I can perceive as a good man, then he must be good. And yet, there can be very good men out there who think that they are doing good, yet don't know that they are doing harm. And we do need to wisen ourselves up as different nations, but just as people, to these to these factors, especially the more prone to the left ideals, because the left ideals has a little bit of a trap, and you got to just look at it in extremes. Yeah, so Donald Trump. I don't know where I've got this feeling that this a lot of these little things are like political shows. He's invested a lot of money and time and effort into this political movement. I don't know whether this can catch the imagination of the right middle class of American society. I probably perceive that it is still fairly big. However, the way that the political structure is designed, obviously you can't, when it goes to, you've got to have one political party, you've got this, I can't remember what this is, it's like, you've got two political parties that get put forward against each other. Now, of which you've got the Republicans and the Democrats. So the Republicans, they have to put forward their candidates, and it goes into certain amounts of elections until you get down to the two again. You might get a three-way conversation, but then you go down to the two, and then eventually you have the one final winner. So eventually it just gets polarized, and his opinions get taken out, and you have the old classic problem is, well, we've got Donald Trump, and you might agree with his policies, but he's never going to become president. So you've got to put in Rand Paul instead, or Rubiani, or I can't remember what his bloody name is. I think that was the old New York minister. Anyway, but yeah. You have these this way of chopping down his political presence, and I don't think he really needs to capture loads of people's ideals before he amounts to anything major. And maybe he is investing tons of money and everything else to get to this state of prominence. However, it may be all just to be entirely futile. Now, if that is the case, he's put forward like this right-wing ideals, and then the people in the right-wing society still believes that this a lot of this stuff, what he's saying, is true and is the best thing and is the medicine for society. And then they become a little bit more ingrained and annoyed with the fact that America has just become a very moderate, middle, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings society. And there are certain levels of danger in that the grumpy class of people which are left over. So yeah, interesting thoughts. I hope, just spread your opinion. Let me know if I'm wrong on any of the points about Donald and any of his political ideals, anything that would be good in Donald Trump's ideals for a good free market, liberty, lowering taxation, lowering the size of government sort of world. Or is there anything necessarily evil or dangerous in the terms of his protectionism stances or anything like that? Or if I've got anything totally wrong, just let me know. But thank you very much for your listening to the end of this podcast. I